In this video, we'll start to introduce what the digestive system does and a little bit about how it does it. The digestive system basically is all about getting nutrients out of food and drink. But of course, it's a little bit more complicated than that. There are really 6 activities involved in the process of getting nutrients out of your food or whatever you drink. Ingestion is probably the most basic one. Ingestion is basically taking food into the body, and that is what happens at the mouth. Ingestion is pretty straightforward. You bite off a piece of food and take it in. Propulsion is the movement of food through the GI tract. So you have to get that food from the mouth all the way through the esophagus and stomach and small intestine and large intestine to the anus. And propulsion involves 2 processes. First, you swallow. So your tongue moves that bolus of food to the back of your mouth, and you activate a reflex that has you contracting some skeletal muscle and swallowing that piece of food. But about 1/3 of the way down the esophagus, you have an involuntary means of propulsion taking over, and that is peristalsis. Peristalsis refers to waves of contraction and relaxation that squeeze food through the GI tract. Imagine squeezing a tennis ball through a stocking. That's that squeezing motion that you make with your hands to move the tennis ball through. That's what your GI tract does to move food through. And you see peristalsis happening in the lower esophagus, in the stomach, and in the small and large intestine. In the large intestine, you actually have big waves of peristalsis that occur a few times a day, moving big boluses of food through the large intestine, or, well, by that point it's mostly waste products. Let me show you what a peristaltic wave looks like in the stomach. Do you see it? This is that wave of contraction. You may have heard the term gastric motility. Digestive motility or gastric motility is the propulsion of food through the digestive tract. With age, this function of the digestive system actually declines, in part due to a decrease in smooth muscle tone. You get peristalsis gets weaker, and the gastroesophageal sphincter gets weaker. So with the decreased peristalsis, you're more likely to develop constipation as you get older. And with the weakened gastroesophageal sphincter, you're more likely to develop acid reflux as you get older. The next couple of activities that the digestive system does are all related to breaking food down into nutrients that your body can actually use. So if you think about eating an apple, taking a bite of an apple, can one of the cells in your body take up that apple? Can one of the cells in your body even take up a single bite from that apple? No. So you have to basically break that bite down into molecules, into individual molecules. And your digestive system does this through both mechanical means, where you're just physically chopping up or mixing that food, and through chemical means, where you actually have digestive enzymes breaking apart large molecules in that food into smaller molecules. Mechanical processing includes chewing when you take a bite of food and you're you chew it up with your teeth, you're basically chopping it and mushing it into smaller pieces. It also occurs what happens to your food in the stomach. The stomach is a very muscular organ. It actually has 3 layers of muscle around it. And when food gets into the stomach just goes to town on it. It's beating it up. It's pummeling it. It's pinching it. It's pulling it apart. So the stomach, this churning in the stomach, helps break a big food mass apart into smaller masses as well. Segmentation is also a form of mechanical processing, and segmentation is just basically mixing food with enzymes. So in a way, this is preparatory to starting the chemical digestion process. So it's rhythmic constrictions of non-adjacent segments. So first this segment squeezes, and then this segment squeezes, and in the process, you get the food and the enzymes mixed together. And you see segmentation in both the small intestine and the large intestine. It also takes that partially digested food product and moves it along the intestinal wall so that absorption is easier. In the large intestine, segmentation is referred to as haustral churning. The haustra are segments of the large intestine. LI for large intestine. So once that big food bite has been broken down into smaller segments, the digestive enzymes can access the large molecules in those little partially digested food segments. And enzymes are proteins that act as catalysts, so they make chemical reactions happen more quickly. And the digestive enzymes, the chemical reaction that they do, is called hydrolysis, which is where you use water to break apart a bigger molecule into 2 smaller molecules. So say you have molecule A joined covalently to molecule B, you add some water. Remember, water is H2O, but it can be written as HOH. And that turns these into AOH, so you get a hydroxy group added to A, and the hydrogen added to B. That's what hydrolysis is, and that's what digestive enzymes do. So this way they can take apart a whole protein chain break it down into individual amino acids by hydrolysis. And for a quick visual reference as to what enzymes do, remember that enzymes are very specific for their reactions. So if you want to break apart the sugar maltose, you need an enzyme called maltase, which can break maltose apart into 2 glucose molecules. But if you want to take a different sugar, fructose, sucrose, and break that down into glucose and fructose, you need to use a different enzyme called sucrase. So enzymes are very specific. And the digestive enzymes, the ones that are active in your digestive tract, they're produced by the salivary glands, they're produced by the small intestine, they're produced in the stomach. The stomach produces a protease, an enzyme that chops up proteins. And they're also produced by the pancreas. So in the small intestine, you actually have digestive enzymes from both the pancreas and the small intestine itself acting on your food product. Once food has been broken down through both mechanical and chemical means into nutrients, you have absorption taking place. Absorption is the uptake of nutrients. So those nutrients in your digestive tract are a good start, but they really don't do your body any good until they get into circulation. So they have to get across the cells of the digestive tract into either the blood or the lymph, and then eventually back into the blood. This is kind of a cartoon schematic of what's going on in absorption. You have the lumen of the small intestine here, because the small intestine is where the vast majority of absorption takes place. You have digestion going on in the lumen. large molecule getting broken down to smaller nutrients, those nutrients getting taken up by the epithelial cells that line the lumen of the digestive tract, across those epithelial cells and then down here into the blood. Most nutrients are taken up directly by the blood. Large fat molecules, because they're hydrophobic, and they're packaged in a way that they don't actually fit in the blood, so they're taken up into the lymph. The last activity of the digestive system, the last activity on the disassembly line, is defecation. Defecation is just getting rid of the stuff that we couldn't use. Elimination of solid indigestible waste. And this includes a small part of the feces that you excrete are fiber from food that your body couldn't break down and that the bacteria in your large intestine couldn't break down. But you also actually shed a number of epithelial cells in the digestive system and a number of bacterial cells. Actually, it's been estimated that the majority of the weight of your feces is actually bacterial cells shed from the large intestine. But it's all gotten rid of at the anus. This diagram summarizes where all of these activities actually occur. So you've got ingestion happening up at the mouth. You have propulsion with swallowing in the oropharynx and upper esophagus, peristalsis taking over in the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. Mechanical digestion, you've got chewing in the mouth, churning in the stomach, segmentation in the small intestine, haustral turning in the large intestine. Absorption happening mostly in the small intestine. Nutrients and water taken up. Some water is absorbed in the large intestine. The majority of the water is absorbed in the small intestine, but you get most of the rest of it taken up in the large intestine. Chemical digestion is wherever you see these little green drops, but I'm going to add something because this diagram, it shows chemical digestion happening in the stomach, in the small intestine, and a little bit in the large intestine, where you have bacteria doing some chemical digestion. So it's not your own enzymes, it's the bacterial enzymes breaking food down. But I'm going to add a drop up in the mouth because saliva is where chemical digestion actually begins. Lastly, of course, you have the final activity, defecation. Okay, so after studying this video, it's just a beginning to talking about the physiology of the digestive system, but you should be able to talk a little bit about the different steps, the different activities involved in going from ingested food to nutrients circulating in the blood. You should be able to talk about peristalsis and segmentation, talk about mechanical processing and chemical digestion. Sometimes mechanical processing is referred to as mechanical digestion. You should be able to talk about where mechanical digestion and chemical digestion and where absorption where these all take place.